Metabolism is the engine that runs our bodies, and blood glucose patterns matter for metabolic health. But growing evidence is showing that people's metabolisms respond differently to foods, highlighting a need for personalized guidance. Levels seeks to fill this need by leveraging continuous glucose monitors with real-time feedback, providing users with actionable insights about how their lifestyle impacts their glucose patterns. In this review, I'll share my experience using the Levels product and really dig into the data to determine whether it can live up to the claims. And in full transparency, Levels provided me with the product for free so I could give it a spin. But this review represents my own honest opinions. Let's science it. Hey, welcome to Nourishable. I'm Dr. Lara. First, what is a continuous glucose monitor, and why would you use one? Continuous glucose monitors, or CGMs for short, are wearable biosensors that measure the glucose concentration in your interstitial fluid, basically the watery fluid around your cells. It's a good proxy for your blood glucose concentration. CGMs were originally developed to help people with diabetes manage their blood glucose. Now, companies like Levels are making them available to general consumers through off-label usage. Why use one? Research shows that blood glucose patterns, also called glycemic responses, are really important biomarkers for health. It's pretty standard to have a fasting glucose measured during an annual physical, but that is just representing a snapshot in time, when in reality, glucose levels are dynamic throughout the day. Lots of variability with super high spikes and steep dips, or glucose levels that stay high for a long time are all associated with an increased risk of developing chronic diseases, like type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Food and exercise, plus other factors like stress and sleep, all impact our glycemic patterns. But here's the thing. Studies have shown that there's a ton of variability between people in how they respond to food. Beans may be great for you, but cause a big spike for me. Levels makes this dynamic data available to you, so you can gain insight into your own glycemic responses, learn about what factors impact them, and tweak your lifestyle to, as Levels says, unlock metabolic fitness. Since CGMs are medical devices, they require a prescription. When placing your order, you'll go through an online medical consultation through TruePill that consists of a medical history questionnaire and identity verification. The Levels product is a 1-month program that provides you with 2 CGMs and access to their app for a year. It costs $398, which breaks down into $199 for 2 CGMs and $199 annual membership fee. The CGMs are the Abbott Freestyle Libre. This is the same device used by several other direct-to-consumer CGM products. Each sensor lasts 14 days. The package also contains several patches to wear on top of the device to protect it, but frankly, to also be a walking advertisement for Levels. So now I'm going to insert the Levels CGM into my arm. Levels does provide some really helpful video tutorials to make this process really streamlined. So the first thing I need to do is select where I'm going to insert it on my arm. So it's best to pick a place that's pretty fleshy. You want to avoid the muscle. So I'm going to pick a spot back here. And now I'm going to clean off that spot with the alcohol prep pad. Twist off. Make sure that's lined up. Press down. And now the sensor is inside the applicator. It's a very tiny little needle. Now that needle doesn't actually stay into you. It just helps to insert the sensor fiber into your skin, but it doesn't hurt at all. So I'm going to take the applicator and go to the place that I cleaned off. And I'm just going to press down and slowly pull up. And it did not hurt at all. So now I'm going to put the performance patch on top of the sensor, and that just helps protect it a little bit. And now I can use the Freestyle Libre app to actually activate the sensor. Using Levels Beta involves interacting with both the LibreLink and Levels app on your phone. LibreLink is used to scan the sensor to actually get the data. So you go like this, scan with the NFC, 2 satisfying buzzes, and then you immediately will see the data on your phone, as well as a curve representing your glucose levels for the past several hours. And these are color-coded as black for time within target, and then red when you're out of target. Then from there, the data will get automatically transferred into the Levels app. However, I have found in my experience that sometimes there can be a bit of a delay in actually getting the data into the app, sometimes for several hours. So you can also request a manual sync by pressing this button here. And so I can say sync now. And I'm getting a little scrolly wheel as it is syncing the data. And in my experience here, again, sometimes it will sync immediately and other times there will be a bit of a delay. And so to me, this is one of the drawbacks of the product right now. First of all, that it requires you to use 2 different apps, that you get immediate data out of LibraLink, but that sometimes there is this delay to get the data and analysis out of Levels. Here we go. So now it says that it successfully imported data. Great, and there is my glucose level from right now, 81 milligrams per deciliter. Now, the sensor can hold up to 8 hours of data, so that does mean you have to scan your sensor at least every 8 hours. I have found if I scan immediately when I wake up, each time I eat, and then immediately before bed, I'm able to capture all of my data over the course of the day. But there have been some times when I missed catching some data, whether it's because I slept longer than 8 hours, or I just had a really busy day and I wasn't able to interact with my phone all that much, or sometimes if I was just really impatient with scanning and didn't wait for both of those buzzes. In order to actually get insights about your glycemic responses, you need to actually enter in your behaviors: food, exercise, and other things like stress and sleep. So to enter in an event, I'm going to enter my meal here. So I hit the plus sign. I'm going to snap a picture of my food. And now I'm going to type in what I ate with as much or as little detail as I want. In many ways, I really liked the simplicity of the food tracker and the fact that it didn't require you to enter extreme levels of detail with specific serving sizes of every ingredient. I find food tracking to be a big pain in the butt, and sometimes it can kind of distort my relationship with food. So I appreciated that I could still use the food tracker, but just enter in a really quick shorthand, like, I don't know, mom's lasagna, and not have to be sitting there and measuring and weighing everything that went into my meal, and yet still get really useful insights from the Levels app. Now, while I like the simplicity, there are a few drawbacks of how the food tracker functions right now. The first is that it does not have a barcode scanner, so you're not able to just seamlessly scan in packaged foods and get kind of a readout of their macronutrient proportions. The other thing is that while I like that you don't have to enter in specific serving sizes, sometimes it would be nice to get that granularity out of your data and have the opportunity to enter in serving sizes and get some kind of estimation of the macronutrient proportions, so the numbers of grams of protein or fiber, because we know that those macronutrient proportions are really important in our postprandial glycemic responses. So it would be nice to have the option to integrate that tracking into the Levels app. For physical activity, events can either be entered manually or integrated from a fitness tracker through Google Fit or Apple. When I first started using Levels, I was wearing a Fitbit, and then later on I switched to this Garmin Lily, and both of those have to be integrated in through Google Fit. Now, Google Fit only syncs every 24 hours with the Levels app, and I found usually I prefer to see my fitness events more immediately, so I generally opted for entering my fitness events in manually, and I didn't really find that to be too much of a burden. So again, you hit the plus sign, you select exercise, you can optionally enter a picture, then you enter what you did, dance class, contemporary dance class, and you enter in the time, and then you have to enter in whether it was strenuous or not. And the reason that this is important is because strenuous physical activity can actually cause a spike in your blood glucose levels. And this is because your liver is releasing glycogen out into the bloodstream so that it can fuel your exercise. Yes, dance class was strenuous.
The Levels app provides you with 2 main metrics: zone scores and metabolic scores. Zone scores are a reflection of your glycemic response for 2 hours after a meal. They range from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, representing a minimal glucose change. There are 3 parameters that contribute to your zone score: your glucose peak, where a higher spike is worse, your glucose rise from baseline, where smaller is better, and your time to recovery, where shorter is better. Metabolic scores reflect your glycemic patterns over the entire day. They can range from 55 to 100, with 100 being the best. Your metabolic score is also calculated based on 3 parameters. Glucose variability, basically a measure of the spikes and dips, with more stable glucose levels being better, your average glucose level over the course of the day, and your time in target range. Levels defines target range as 72 to 110 milligrams per deciliter. The nutrition scientist in me was curious about where this range comes from, because my instinct was that it seemed like a very tight range. So I really appreciated the blog post that described all the studies used to define this range, as well as the caveat that there really isn't a clinical consensus yet on optimal daily glucose patterns for people without diabetes. So these are educated guesses based on currently available data. One of the features that I liked was your daily metabolic report that popped up when opening the app first thing in the morning that reflected yesterday's scores. Since I often experienced a delay in data syncing, I usually used the daily metabolic report as my prompt to review my zone scores from the previous day, set my intention, and map out some tweaks that I'd aim to try. This is not the first direct-to-consumer CGM product that I've tried, and Levels had some unique features that I really liked. First, I liked their approach to the 4-week program. When starting, they recommend that you live your life as you normally would for the first week and log all events. Although I totally recognize that self-monitoring has a tendency to change your behavior, I tried really hard to capture the full range of my habits. After that first week, I learned which of my routines scored well, like a morning dog walk, then overnight oats with berries, which gave me mediocre scores, like anytime I had black beans on my salad, and which gave me poor scores, like an evening of sushi, wine, and cookies. For weeks 2 through 4, Levels encourages you to apply what you've learned from your baseline data and improve your scores. I found perusing the zone reviews here really powerful. You can sort your zones by score and then dig in to see your glucose curve, an analysis of your peak glucose, glucose change, and time above target, plus intuitive graphs integrating your glucose, heart rate, and step patterns. Based on your entered ingredients, Levels will also highlight potential glucose spike contributors. So here it looks like cookies often lead to moderate spikes, but sushi to large spikes. Within the Insights tab, they provide you with average glucose rises from all Levels users for particular ingredients. I found those less useful because glucose responses are individual and the context of the entire meal is important. What I did love, though, was this compare option. I used it to compare zone scores for similar meals with slight manipulations. I got a terrible score of 1 for this vegan wild rice, green bean, and mushroom casserole with cashew cream. And I was shocked because I thought it was a pretty healthy, fiber-rich meal. But when I ate it with tuna on another night, I boosted my score to 8. This comparison tool really emphasized to me the importance of pairing with protein. Some other fun comparisons I did was comparing a similar Brussels sprouts pasta dish with either whole wheat pasta or a fancy teff pasta, and I was surprised to see that the whole wheat pasta scored better. I also compared 2 different types of bread in my avocado toast, and I found that this angelic sprouted whole wheat gave me a better score than Dave's killer 21 whole grains and seeds bread. This tool provides you with the data to optimize choices of particular products within your typical meals. Levels also incorporates challenges, where they walk you through how to design an N of 1 experiment. I did the apple cider vinegar challenge and found that drinking 1 ounce of ACV in water before eating my avocado toast led to a better score. Honestly, before this experiment, I thought that all the apple cider vinegar claims were just pseudoscience, but now I want to dig into them some more. Future video, perhaps? The walk versus no walk after a meal challenge was another great experiment confirming how beneficial those short bursts of physical activity around meals can be in attenuating glycemic responses. During my testing, I also did some manipulations to try and get my highest and lowest metabolic scores. One day when I ate an extremely low-carb diet, which is actually pretty unusual for me, I got a score of 99. While I would say that my low-carb diet was pretty healthy, it was also pretty low in fiber and high in fat. And I know from other personalized nutrition tests that I don't process fat very well. While this yielded my highest metabolic score from Levels, I know that it isn't actually a very sustainable way for me to eat. I really appreciated that some of the Levels educational materials do highlight that their scores only reflect glycemic responses, but not other parameters that are important for health. On another day, when I aim to get the best score, eating and moving in ways that are sustainable for me, like short bursts of physical activity around meals and ensuring that each meal had fiber and protein, I scored a 95. So that really gave me the confidence that I had learned strategies that I can incorporate into my life. When I aim to get the worst score possible during a day of refined carbs and no exercise, yes, I did eat donuts for breakfast, I scored a 64. The most surprising thing that I learned using Levels was the attenuating effect alcohol has on my glycemic responses. I got some of my highest zone and metabolic scores on days during the holidays when I drank. One of the Levels articles dives into the complexities of alcohol on glycemic responses and indicated that there may be an acute increase in insulin sensitivity. Based on my data, it seems like incorporating moderate alcohol consumption leads to better glucose metabolism for me. But I don't really think that that's the right message in the long run, since even low to moderate alcohol consumption is associated with health risks. I'd like to see Levels build in some prompts highlighting when particular entries may be unhealthy in the long term, despite yielding good glycemic scores. Overall, I really liked the Levels product. It gave me the opportunity to receive nearly real-time data on how my behaviors are impacting my metabolic health, and the tools to tweak my behaviors to improve my glycemic responses in ways that fit into my real life. I've tried several CGM products now, and I found that there are several pros that are unique to Levels. First and foremost, their Zone Reviews tool was exceptional, and I especially loved the comparison functionality. The challenges really guide you on how to run N of 1 experiments and highlight important factors in glycemic responses. Tips that I learned from these features have now been incorporated into my regular routine. The educational materials were the best that I've seen. They were well written and well referenced. Definitely the way to this nutrition scientist's heart. One other pro that may seem counterintuitive is that one of my CGMs started giving me faulty super low readings. This seems to be a thing that just happens with these Abbott Freestyle Libras, and I've experienced it before with other companies. However, the way that Levels handled it really stood out. I had to notice and initiate a conversation about faulty sensor readings with other products, whereas the Levels app notified me that my sensor may be bad, prompted me to seek medical attention if I felt unwell, and made requesting a replacement sensor super streamlined. The Levels product does have a few cons. The biggest drawback compared to competitors is needing to use two different apps, and the delay between data transferring between LibraLink and Levels. For me, this meant that I often wouldn't really analyze the impact of my meals until the next day, and I would love to see it more immediately. I will point out that at the time of filming, Levels is still in beta, and I know that integrating everything together into one app is a priority for them. The other drawback of using two apps is that the LibraLink app is designed for people managing diabetes, so the color-coded thresholds are different than what Levels uses. I found that I often woke up with pretty low glucose levels, which would be color-coded as red danger by LibraLink, but not considered problematic by Levels. So receiving these two competing messages is a bit confusing. The food tracking app doesn't enable serving sizes or barcode scanners. Also in the food tracking app, sometimes I notice that my pictures disappeared, and I'm not really sure why that happened. Two other downsides that aren't unique to Levels are the need to scan every 8 hours. This is just a requirement of the Freestyle Libre CGM, and the delay in integration of fitness tracker data, which is an issue for any product relying on Google Fit. I feel like the 1-month-long Levels program is a good length because it enables the opportunity to capture your typical behavior and then experiment with changes. Tracking, scanning, and reviewing your data all take time. It became a joke of having to tell Levels what I was eating. In order to get your value out of it, make sure that you select a month that will allow daily engagement. Personally, I couldn't imagine using it for more than 1 month. I felt kind of relieved after I didn't have to track my food every day. I could see doing the 1 month program and then using a 2-week sensor maybe 2 or 3 more times over the year as a check-in and opportunity to run some more self-experiments. They also offer a subscription option for additional CGMs at $199 for 2 through your 1-year membership. Based on what I've learned from Levels, I would hope that everyone has the opportunity to use a CGM at least once. At $398, the cost is steep, but I believe that if these personalized insights are implemented in the long term, then they can improve health. This is why I've partnered with Levels as an ambassador. However, I will point out that there actually haven't been any studies yet showing that using a CGM leads to improved health outcomes in people without diabetes. So it's really just a hypothesis built on the evidence base that glycemic responses vary between people. My take action tips from Levels are pairing with protein, bursts of physical activity around meals, shots of apple cider vinegar, and guidance towards the best bread for my avocado toast. Since everyone responds to foods differently, plus have different preferences and lifestyles, everyone would likely come away with different take action tips. Because with nutrition, it's personal. If you'd like to try Levels yourself, check out the link in my video description and let me know in the comments about your experience. That's what science tastes like. Thanks for tuning in to Nourishable. Check out all my references in the video description and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all things nutrition.